Good morning, welcome back to the Celtic Way. It's Wednesday the 29th of October. I'm Tony Haggerty and I'm delighted to be joined today by Ryan McGinley. Ryan, how are you?
Things are good. It's been pretty non-stop the past couple of days, but yeah, I'm doing fine. Looking forward to getting back to the nitty-gritty tonight, which is the small matter of the Scottish Premiership. Celtic against Falkirk this evening. Yeah, it's been a wild last 48 hours or so in the world of Celtic, but we'll get into it. We've been covering it extensively on the Celtic Way and we'll get into it this morning.
Yes, the post-Brendan Rodgers era starts tonight. Celtic versus Falkirk. Now, Scottish Premiership, myself and Ryan will preview that in greater detail. But first and foremost, a word to our sponsors, and we say thank you to It's Simply Furniture. They're located in Hillington, Glasgow, and It's Simply Furniture, an independent brand dedicated to bringing luxury and contemporary styles into homes across the UK. With over a decade of experience in furniture retail, they meticulously source only the finest pieces curated for quality, comfort and timeless designs. From their elegant sofas to statement dining sets, their hand-picked collections offer exceptional value without compromising on style, and their dedicated team ensure that your furniture is delivered with care right to your doorstep. If you want to see the beauty up close, you can visit that stunning showroom in Hillington and mention the Celtic Way for a special in-store discount, and you can read all about them and their social media links in the description of this podcast. Ryan, life goes on without Brendan Rodgers. For those who are inclined and read stuff on the website, I'll put up a piece. I did a personal reflective piece on Brendan Rodgers' 2 spells in charge. It's up on the website if you want to read that, then enjoy that. Hope you enjoy that. But yeah, Ryan, kick off tonight without Brendan Rodgers in the technical area. 2 new faces in the technical area. Former Celtic managerial legend Martin O'Neill and ex-Celtic player Shaun Maloney. What do you think they'll bring to the party, Ryan?
Do you know, as much as it's going to be weird without Brendan Rodgers, I also believe it's going to be just as weird without John Kennedy on the touchline as well, in the dugout. A guy that's been, attached to the club for 27 years across different roles. I've just got to say, as a bit of an aside, I think it's been pretty disappointing that the club haven't recognised that by way of a post. Or that I think that the efforts that he's put in to the club deserve to be recognised, and the fact that maybe they've got something in the working in the background. But I would have hoped, or I would have wanted, a better tribute to the outgoing assistant manager, because he's been a part of so much of Celtic's success over the past, we say 27 years. He was coming through the scouting, became a coach after that terrible injury he got as a player. Martin O'Neill was talking about that yesterday, about picking it up, about sustaining that injury while on international duty. He's been such a big part of Celtic's successes over the past decade, over a decade or so. I would want him to be recognised and remembered for the efforts that he put in guiding Celtic, or assisting those in charge to success. He was clearly a popular member of the backroom staff, and I would hope that a tribute comes out. But just in general, it's going to be very interesting. I was thinking back in my head to sort of recollect if I've ever seen Martin O'Neill in a touchline before for Celtic. Now, you grow up hearing about Martin O'Neill, about the legendary figure that he was, guiding Celtic to Seville, the UEFA Cup final, winning a treble in his first season in charge. I think I was only present at one game that he was in charge of, and even then it was a testimonial. I think Jackie McNamara played in Republic of Ireland select at Celtic Park. But apart from that, and I might have been too young to remember other occasions that I went to see Martin O'Neill's side, that's the only real time I can remember watching a Martin O'Neill side. So it's a new, for many of us, and Josh and I were talking about this is a new thing for a lot of us, seeing Martin O'Neill as an actual manager in the dugout. So it's going to be exciting. Shaun Maloney's back in the fold. You can see he's taking a very hands-on approach to everything. I'm quite, as Martin O'Neill said, maybe not nervous, I wouldn't put nervous into it, but I'm actually quite excited for this evening to see how it goes, because it's completely different, and it might just be the sort of change that's needed to kickstart this season.
I think for those of us of a certain vintage, Ryan, who were around when Martin O'Neill took the club from 2000 to 2005, it's the memories are still there. You go through the Rolodex in your mind. There was so many highs from, the 6-2 game against Rangers to guiding Celtic into their first European final in 33 years. The man is, I think it was Billy Connolly that once said he should be a sainted man for what he did for Celtic. That's purely up to the individual to decide that. But yeah, Martin O'Neill is a legendary managerial figure. Here's hoping he's still got some of that magic. He's a very knowledgeable man, as I said. And I spoke to John last night, and I kind of said that a figure like that, I always feel should be at the club in some kind of capacity. I mentioned director of football, but with hindsight, probably maybe at 73, he's maybe a wee bit older for that role, but he should be there in some capacity because he's got so much to give and he's got so much knowledge and wisdom to impart to any incoming new manager. So I kind of had to think about that. As a director of football, possibly not now. The more I think about it, but I was just kind of thinking out aloud and spitballing. But yeah, for those who were privileged to watch Martin O'Neill's team the first time around, he had some wonderfully gifted players at his disposal as well. Obviously, Henrik Larsson et al. But he doesn't have that tonight. But I'm interested in the dynamic, Ryan, as well. I want to see who's at the forefront in the centre in that technical area. I'm assuming it would be Shaun Maloney. Martin O'Neill used to have a famous spring when Celtic scored. He would jump up, but I don't think you'll see that tonight. He'll tell you himself his knees might not be able to cope with it. But good to see him back. And as I say, he's got a huge amount of knowledge and wisdom to impart. And Celtic players, I'm sure, will get a boon from listening to someone of that ilk.
Yeah, no, and I think they'll be well briefed by. They would have been well briefed by Shaun Maloney yesterday in training about what Martin O'Neill will expect of them, the standards that he sets. Even despite not having a managerial role in 5-6 years, he will still have those standards. The good thing is, what he demands due to the fact that he's a regular figure on punditry shows, on he does a lot of sponsoring as well when the likes of like the Premier Sports Cup come around to the launch of things. You know what he will expect of his team because his opinions. He's been out there as much as he said. I think that he was sort of making the notion that he was going to ride off into the sunset after this current period of doing things. He's done anything but. It's as he spoke about yesterday, it's that addiction that he just can't shake. Football's that addiction, and it's brought him back even at the age of 73. Once he was offered that opportunity to come back, even on an interim basis, he doesn't know how long that's going to be. He took it with both hands, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how it transpires tonight. I think it's going to be really interesting. I think it's the hottest ticket in town, Celtic against Falkirk. I don't know if we'll ever say that again about that particular fixture. We might do, we might not. I just think that there's so many eyes are going to be on this. The fact that Celtic have made it a pay-per-view as well, they understand that people will be tuning into this game because of the recent developments both on and off the pitch at Celtic. It's going to be an interesting night, and I'm looking forward to sampling it.
I think the biggest thing that everybody is looking forward to, Ryan, is the first 11 for tonight's football match. I was making the point to John last night that when Martin O'Neill was there the first time around, he filled his team with giants. And I think there's some height in the Celtic team, but I would think his influence is to be proven correctly that he might use a lot of the taller players tonight. I can imagine Austin Trusty coming back. Can imagine a possible more central role for somebody like Arnott Engels because he's a big fella. And I think someone pointed out to me that of the team that started on Sunday, 7 out of the 11 were 6 foot plus. Certainly doesn't look like that to me when you see them, but I think we'll maybe utilise their height in a better way, shape or form. And that's what's intriguing for me, Ryan. I want to see the team changes tonight and the actual formation and the setup.
It's one thing being tall, but you've got to use your height to your advantage.
Yeah.
If you've got that weapon, that weapon, you can't teach being tall, basically.
No, I know that.
But at the same time, you've got to use it. if you've got that advantage, and in some ways it can be a disadvantage as well, because the smaller players can be nippier across the pitch. Some of them can be more than others, but if you've got that height on you, then you've got to use it. And Martin O'Neill's sides were known for their physicality and strength and their height. He was speaking yesterday and he said that this team haven't really had that in the past couple of years, but they're a good football side, so they've won regardless. But he might look to rely on some of the taller players coming into the team. The reason why we don't have a predicted lineup is because I've got no idea what way Martin O'Neill and Shaun Maloney go tonight. It's all bets are off, basically, when it comes to the starting lineup. I think anybody could be in that team if looking for a little bit of rejuvenation, a bit of a change in the side. You could see a switch in formation, a switch in personnel in different positions on the park. It's really anybody's guess at the moment what team that he picks, but I think there's going to be a bit of excitement when the team comes out it will be half 6, an hour and 15 before the game. Once that team comes out, I believe there'll be a lot of talk, because you would assume that there'd be changes from just naturally from the game on Sunday against Hearts, but also a new manager, a new assistant manager wanting to put their own stamp on things for however long that period might be. But I'm interested. It's going to be quite intriguing to see what team he goes with.
Regardless of the mood music around Ryan and everything that's happened in the past 24, 48-hour spell, you can't lose sight of the fact that there's an important game of association football to be played, which Celtic need to win. None of this can be sidetrack anybody and become a circus or a sideshow. Celtic need to win a football match in order to keep themselves involved in the title race. They're currently 8 points behind Hearts. Hearts play St Mirren and Paisley tonight. Don't know what happened there. Can't affect that. Celtic have to win against Falkirk, Ryan. That's the be-all and end-all for me. We'll worry about style and shape later with Martin O'Neill and Shaun Maloney in terms of their interim period and how long they're going to be, but they need to win this football match tonight. It's a must-win for me, Ryan. No other result will suffice.
What I would go back to is the fact that John McGlynn's Falkirk side will be organised, and that's one thing that you would maybe assume Celtic won't be, or won't be to the same level as a team and a manager that are settled in John McGlynn. John McGlynn knows what he's going to be doing with these players tonight, and he'll see tonight's game as an opportunity to grab another scalp, to pick up another scalp in the Scottish Premiership. Their recent form has been really, really good. They've managed to pick up 7 points in the last 3 games, and that includes a draw against Rangers at home. So they're in really good form at the moment, and I would expect them to come to Celtic Park feeling pretty good about themselves, knowing the fact that they're coming in. They're a bit of the sideshow in a way, because Martin O'Neill and Shaun Maloney are the main event. They're the headline act at the moment, but they'll be wanting to come to Celtic Park and make something happen for themselves, because they'll have aspirations of staying in the league. They've started pretty well after a bit of a the opening couple of games weren't so great for Falkirk, but they've managed to turn themselves around, and they're now sitting comfortably in mid-table at the moment. It's a very cutthroat league at the moment, but they'll fancy their chances tonight against a side that have lost their manager, will be getting used to a new manager, a new assistant. It's going to be an intriguing battle between the sides, and I just do not think that this is an easy game for Celtic. I didn't think it was an easy game under Brendan Rodgers, and I certainly don't think it is under Martin O'Neill and Shaun Maloney as well.
Matters on the park, Ryan. Obviously, it's a must-win for Celtic, but off the park, protests being ramped up again. There's a protest 7 o'clock tonight outside the main stand. There it is. You flick that up if you want to read that for the benefit of the viewers.
Yep, I'll just read the end of the statement. Michael Nicholson, Chris Mackay, this is from the Celtic Fans Collective. Michael Nicholson, Chris Mackay and the rest of the board have shown that they lack the strength or independence to stand up to Dermot Desmond. They're incapable of developing and executing a strategy that will allow Celtic to reach its potential, and have repeatedly let down both the manager and the supporters. They then bolded this: we invite and encourage all Celtic fans to join us outside the main stand from 7 p.m. tomorrow to send a clear message. It is time for them to go. So despite the change or the resignation of Brendan Rodgers and the return of Martin O'Neill and Shaun Maloney, the protests aren't going to stop, and they believe that the only change that will help the club in the long run is the removal of certain members of the hierarchy. But now, Tony, it would seem for the first time that Dermot Desmond is now in the sort of the attention, or the spotlight is on him
The firing
now,
line.
whereas before. Sorry, what were you saying?
See, he's in the firing line as well now. He's been
Yes,
lumped
yeah,
in
he
alongside
completely
the
is,
other
and do you know what? I think he's been a notable omission from the Celtic fans' collective statements as of late. But I'm quite glad that, I think off the back of last night, there had to be more of a spotlight put on the major shareholder, given the way that he came out and it was a character assassination on Brendan Rodgers. Essentially, we still await Brendan Rodgers' response to that.
We'll wait with bated breath to see what Brendan Rodgers' response will be, or otherwise. I'm sure in the fullness of time we will get it, and it might well be more box office Brendan Rodgers stuff. But yeah, the protest will happen at 7 o'clock tonight outside the main stand. You'll be there, Ryan, won't you, to capture some of that? Yeah.
Yes, I will be. I'm not going to say front and centre. I don't really want to be part of the protests, but I will be recording video of what transpires outside the main stand tonight after 7 o'clock. So I'll be around the Celtic Way, around about that area to capture it. Also, keep an eye out on the socials, and we'll bring you the latest on what transpires outside the ground between the Celtic Fans Collective, the various Celtic organisations, and the club as a whole, basically.
Now, speaking about the latest, Ryan, Celtic are in search of a new manager, and various candidates have been popping up the top of favourites lists, and you can, if you want to read them out, it's a small print there for me, but there you go.
yeah, it's still a bit of a anybody's guess at the moment, I would say, when it comes to the Celtic manager. We're hearing about the club recently compiling shortlists on who they want to potentially interview. There was a report last night that suggested that there was 3 names on the shortlist, that being Ange Postecoglou, the former Celtic manager, Kieran McKenna of Ipswich Town, and Robbie Keane, former player of Ferencváros right now. But
Yes.
Robbie Keane's currently the second favourite at 3-1. Kieran McKenna is the favourite at 4-6. There's been a lot of talk about Kieran McKenna over the past 24 hours or so, ever since. I think when everybody was waking up yesterday, that was sort of the first name that was doing the rounds. And even before then, after that statement came out, immediately there was talk towards Kieran McKenna. The only problem with that being is that they would have to make up quite a financial package to Ipswich Town, something in the region of £5 million to get him out of his contract at Ipswich. Now, before Ruben Amorim joined Manchester United, Man United were looking, or they were, I believe that he was on their shortlist to become the next manager because he worked under Jose Mourinho as one of his coaches during his time at the club. So he's a manager that's very highly rated, and yeah, out of all of those names, just on a personal opinion, he would be the ideal candidate for me. 39 years old, has improved Ipswich, brought them from League One to the Premier, the English Premier League, and he might just be looking for that next step, and potentially Celtic could be that next step for him.
Yeah, in terms of preference for myself, I made it clear I really like if Celtic could persuade him, Kjetil Knutsen of Bodo Glimt. I think he built something fantastic with Bodo Glimt, and maybe feels that it's the end of that shelf life. I know he's been linked with British clubs before, but his contract's up in December. I said the stars could align in that if Celtic were. But what I did say to John last night on the kind of roundup programme was, I don't want Celtic to go into this half-heartedly. If they have a preferred candidate, go and get them. Don't turn it into a circus. Don't turn it into a long, protracted saga. If they decide that it's Kjetil Knutsen, they decide it's Kieran McKenna or Ange Postecoglou, go and get them. None of this 100 days, Eddie Howe, stringing them along kind of stuff, saga. If Celtic decide they've got a preferred candidate in the next few days, next few weeks, or however long it takes, then they have to make sure that they land that top target, Ryan, and do their due diligence at all times throughout this process and get the best possible man for the job. I'm not saying Kjetil Knutsen is the best possible man for the job, but I think he's in that conversation and he's on that list for me. I know you've made a case there for McKenna as well, and lots of people will be doing their background and own homework on Kieran McKenna. But whoever it is, this has to be conducted properly, Ryan, because I was also making the point that I think Dermot Desmond's missive via the Celtic social media channels the other night and official channels did some reputational damage to Celtic and their workings as a club and as a business. And any manager worth their salt will ask a question about who and what they're coming in to work with if Celtic make an approach. And I think that would be only sensible and fair of them. But certainly, I don't think for a minute that the Celtic manager's job being up for grabs is not an attractive one. I just think that the less attractive side of it will be if someone wants to really look under the bonnet and say, right, what is the deal here? Especially if Celtic are going to go in some kind of different direction with the likes of Kjetil Knutsen, somebody like that.
Yeah, for me, and just going back to the events of Monday night, for me, it should have ended with the first statement that Brendan Rodgers had resigned. They added on statement from, or whatever you want to call it, statement. You could name it anything, to be honest. Yeah, I'm still sort of recovering off the back of that. It's completely unheard of. The only other club I can compare it to is maybe Nottingham Forest recently under Marinakis in the sort of rhetoric that they used towards the manager. But even then, I think it would take some doing to better, if better's even the term you would use, that statement from Dermot Desmond. For me now, the Celtic job is an attractive one, and I would agree with you in that notion. But at the same time, any decent manager will look at what the major shareholders came out with 2 days ago and think, well, if it all goes south, I don't want that on my CV. I don't want that next to my name. I don't want that character attack next to my name. So, as much as you said, and you're quite right in saying it is an attractive job, I think that would put some managers, some top managers especially, into a feeling of doubt in taking the job. It's also a difficult one, and I made this point yesterday to Josh. It's difficult because Celtic are a third of the way through the season, and a lot of their preferred or ideal candidates are either in a job or they wouldn't want to join a club a third of the way, and when they don't really have a control over transfers until at least January, but more so in the summer. As much as, and I've said this about 3 times, it is an attractive job, but at the same time it can be a tough sell coming in a third of the way through the season when you've got to inherit a squad. You can't make any changes to that squad until January. Yeah, it's a difficult one, but you would hope that the attractiveness and the pull factor of Celtic would push away those push factors in a sense.
My thoughts are someone like Kjetil Knutsen whose contract's out in December. You know my thoughts on these things, Ryan. Ask the question. Ask the question. Get an answer. Get them to give you an answer, a yes or no, and if it's a no, get them to give his reasons.
The question about Knutsen that I would pose to you, Tony, back to you. Now, I'm aware that you're the host and I'm asking you some questions, but we've got this sort of fluid partnership going on today. It's that sort of show. Would Kjetil Knutsen want to leave a Champions League team for a team that pretends that they're a Champions League team? That's the question that I would pose to you.
My answer to that would be he turned Bodo Glimt into a Champions League team and a European team worth repute. And I think he would see Celtic as a big name and something that he could achieve similar things with, and arguably a bigger box office draw. I think he's resisted the call of the English Premiership because he didn't want to do reputational harm to himself. And I think he maybe felt it was too early in his managerial career trajectory. I just think the stars might align in this one, Ryan, if you go and ask the question, that he might be ready to take the next step. You know, he's managed with Bodo Glimt in the Champions League. He saw what it's all about. I think that, gets you hungry for more, but you eventually want to take it to a bigger stage and a bigger platform. And I think someone like Knutsen might see Celtic as that at this point in time in his career, because lots of managers are quite calculated about it. Some jump at the earliest opportunity. Some really want to do their apprenticeship, as it were, and keep progressing. So Newton go Bodo Glimt, Celtic, and then maybe take a higher job in the English Premier League or somewhere else in one of the, the world's leagues, Spain, Italy, something like that. So maybe he sees that, he's mapped that out for himself. But I just think with a guy's contract, with a man of that quality, a manager of that quality, his contract being up in December, I think it would be remiss of Celtic not to have to ask that question and get an answer. I really do. I can see the attraction in someone like Kieran McKenna. He's young and he's highly thought of. So I'm not ruling that out. Ange coming back, there's obviously appeal in that for lots of people. Marco Rose has been thrown in, even Eric Terzic, who guided Borussia Dortmund to the Champions League final and lost to Real Madrid. Listen, these candidates are of a high calibre. My point is, if they're all interested in the job, then whittle it down to the shortlist of your prospective candidates and then get a preferred candidate and then go all out to land them, right?
Yeah, just bringing up that list of names. There's a couple of really interesting names in there. Kieran McKenna being an interesting one. Of course, Newton, Wilfred Nonce as well, that I believe is at Columbus Club at the moment. Craig Bellamy, who you've vouched for in recent weeks. Nicky Hayne of, I believe that's Club Brugge. Damien Duff, who was formerly a coach of Celtic. What's interesting for me, just on the coaching side, Tony, is that there seems to be moves from Celtic out with like the first team coaching. The talk of Stevie Hamill potentially becoming head of the academy.
Yep.
You're hearing reports that Celtic are requesting permission of a Chelsea coach whose name escapes me at this moment in time to join the club. So there seems to be moves in the background in different areas. There seems to be a little bit of a revamp at Celtic in terms of the coaching staff. But in some ways that would worry me, because I would want the next manager to have a say in that as well. As much as Paul Tisdale's going to take a leading role in all of this, and maybe some of these are his appointments, I just hope that the new manager, whoever that is coming in with the opportunity to bring some of his own men in, because I think that's the best way for a team to get used to the methodology of a new manager, if he's got some of his lieutenants with him, basically.
I'm sure any new manager will be asked his thoughts and opinions on this, but yeah, I just think it needs a complete overhaul, Ryan. At boardroom level as well. But again, that's another issue altogether. But yeah, I think it's as I say, some of those managerial candidates intrigue me. Bellamy, I mentioned just because I thought he should be certainly all over what he's doing with Wales. Again, you're talking about someone it's early in their managerial tenure. So I think that might be the only thing that counts against Craig Bellamy, but I don't ever rule him out of being a Celtic manager in the future. If, again, the stars align and everything comes together. But certainly we should be watching him. And another I've mentioned in dispatches is Chris Davis at Birmingham. Someone like that, another young up-and-coming manager who knows Celtic more than anybody, having been Brendan Rodgers' right-hand man for the first successful spell when Rodgers was there. So, yeah, lots of intriguing names, Ryan, and it will rumble on, won't it, till we come to its logical conclusion.
And you see, if the whole fallout with Brendan Rodgers hadn't have happened, I would have been publicly vouching for Chris Davies to be the next manager. Now, I know he's had a bit of an iffy start in the Championship with Birmingham City, but he had such a great season last campaign with the team bringing them back up. They've got a bit of investment behind them. They've got Tom Brady as one of their minority owners, so there's definitely a bit of cash behind them. They've got Kyogo at the club now as well, who's had a bit of an indifferent start to the season, leading the line for Birmingham. But I just feel with the whole fallout towards Brendan Rodgers from Dermot Desmond, as one of his former right hand men gonna take that job off the back of that, I really doubt it. There's probably a reason why he's so low down, why he's not even listed in that top 9-10 names. It's maybe one for the future, But at the moment, I just don't see that one happen.
I think
Craig Bellamy.
I think it's a consideration, to be fair.
Completely,
you should be all over what these people are doing and how they're going about their business. That's all. He had a stellar season last season, Ryan. So, but yeah, someone like that should be keeping tabs on. You're now looking for a manager, so you should be all over certain people, in my opinion. But nothing escapes the fact, Ryan, that tonight Celtic, it's game day. Celtic play Falkirk tonight in the Scottish Premiership. We're all looking forward to it, aren't we? No end. There is a nervous excitement that Martin O'Neill alluded to yesterday, but I've got to be honest, I'm genuinely excited to see what Celtic team turn up tonight, to see if they can, recreate some magic with Celtic and get them creating chances, scoring goals and winning football matches on a regular basis. Lots of people saying that Celtic's next game's most important. It is important because they're playing Rangers in a domestic cup semi-final, but the first and foremost, Ryan, one game at a time. The first challenge is Falkirk. We'll have plenty of time to focus our attention on Rangers on Sunday in the next few days. But tonight for me, it's all important. And I just want a win of any sort, Ryan, just to get that interim reign of Martin O'Neill and Shaun Maloney off to a flyer.
Yeah, I don't know if this turn of phrase will catch on, but it's the fear of the relative unknown, because we've seen this story before with Martin O'Neill. We've seen him as manager for 5 years, from 2000 to 2005, but there's 20 years of a gap between the last time that Martin O'Neill managed and tonight. That's a long time. Football has changed a lot in the past 20 years, so Celtic have won a lot of trophies in that time, and a lot of developments have happened both on and off the park. But I would agree that there is a sort of excitement going to this game. I think that the atmosphere unfortunately if Brendan Rodgers was still at the club, and I think you've got to bring this up, there would be a little bit of a down atmosphere going into the game tonight. I think that Celtic Park would have been very muted after the Hearts result, but because of what's happened, you're hoping that the fact that you've got a legendary figure returning to the club and Martin O'Neill, you've got a really good player for Celtic on his day in Shaun Maloney, who's been the professional players pathway manager, who knows the squad of players, who's been working with various people behind the scenes. You're hoping that they can provide a bit of a spark, because despite everything that's going on behind the scenes and the search for a new manager, and that is the main story just now, of course it's going to be Celtic don't have a manager, a permanent manager in place at the moment. They've still got to deal with the day-to-day, which is winning football matches in the Scottish Premiership. Martin O'Neill knows how to do that. He's done it before in his first spell in charge. Shaun Maloney did it as a player. It's up to them to really reinforce that message that the objective hasn't changed. Brendan Rodgers wanted to go and win games for Celtic. Unfortunately, due to a breakdown in the way the squad was going, he left the club, he resigned. But he still wanted the same things as those that are in the interim role are trying to achieve tonight as well. So the message has got to be simple: go and win the game, and then let the rest of the events and news talk for themselves, essentially. Don't make a news story in terms of Celtic dropping more points tonight. Go out and win, and make sure that you're in a better position than where you were on Sunday, or at least the same position in terms of points total. Don't make Hearts go even further in front, but there will be one eye on what's going on in Paisley as well.
Yes, indeed. We will be back on tonight, Ryan, to talk team news, the first starting 11 of the O'Neill and Maloney era, and also see what, in terms of what will happen, will be on after match, pre and post match. Myself and Ryan will be on to talk you all through it, and you'll be able to tell us about the fans' protests as well, Ryan. So keep your eyes on the channel, and we shall see you all again soon. Thank you for your contribution again, Ryan. Enjoyed that. Take care, guys. See you all again tonight.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.